Gail, I'm going to welcome everyone. Please join me, everyone, in welcoming Gail Kriegel to Lunch and Learn. Gail is a playwright, a librettist, and a composer. Her first work was a play for young audiences called Rainbow Junction, which she wrote for Greenport Summer Playhouse.
I tell them all to mute because my family is very noisy.
Oh, they're noisy? All right. Gail has asked that everyone please mute yourself so that there will be no background noise. We'd appreciate that. Let me continue. I was talking about Rainbow Junction for Greenport Summer Playhouse. So Gail, we'd kind of like to think that you got your start here in
that's exactly the way I begin.
Okay. Her first play for adult audiences was called Holy Places, was produced off-Broadway at the American Place Theater. Another play on the home front has been widely produced, most recently by the National Black Theater in Washington, D.C. for the Summer Festival. With 6 other prize-winning playwrights, Gail wrote Seven, a docudrama celebrating 7 remarkable women who have changed the world. That play has been translated into 30 languages. Gail's musical called Sweetee, directed by Tony Award-winning Pat Birch, was produced to critical acclaim at the Signature Theater. And the first draft of her new play called Cracked Open had its first reading at the Grand Central Library. Gail received the National Children's Theater Foundation Award, the Ruby Lloyd Apsey Award, the Rockefeller Foundation Fellowship, and a One World Arts Grant. She was artist in residence at Tribeca Performing Arts Center and visiting artist at the American Academy in Rome. She is artistic director of the East Broadway Theater Project. We are extremely pleased today to have Gail Kriegel here. Gail.
Thank you. And well, I'm just going to elaborate on what you've said. First of all, thank you. And I am working on 2 computers. I have my script. I can't function without a script, so I have my script, which I'm going to be looking over here for. And then I'm going to show you some of the work, some of the posters, a couple of scenes from my work on this computer. So you'll be seeing the right side of me more often, and my desktop, which has all my photographs. So first, thank you so much for inviting me. And actually, I'm quite grateful for your invitation because it made me go back to my work. It motivated me to put something on other than my sweatshirt this morning and even put on makeup, which I haven't put on in a year. So I've stayed pretty much outside of things this pandemic year, and your invitation has jolted my inertia. And maybe now I'll get back to work. So to begin with, I'll begin with my work in the theater, started, as Sarah mentioned, in beautiful Greenport. Because a close family has always lived there throughout my life, the North Fork has as much been my home as New York City. When I got married, my husband and I, both aspiring writers at the time, were looking for work that would support us, but would give us time to write. So why not open a summer theater on my aunt's property in the North Fork, where we'd make a ton of money in the summer, and in the winter, we would write. Well, anybody who knows about theater knows that that was quite naive, but we had many parties with our friends and charged them each $25 and raised money. We put up a tent. because the town wouldn't let us open on residential property, and we called it the Greenport Summer Playhouse. And I'm going to try to share my screen to show you. Oh, that I think the host has to enable my screen sharing.
Andrea, are you here? I have to make you the host in order to do that. I'm not sure how to do that. Oh dear.
If I can do it a different.
Did Judy say something about spotlighting the person?
Judy is not able to be here today.
No, I know that, but yesterday I was talking to her, and she said something about spotlighting the person.
No, the host has to disable. The host has disabled the participant's screen sharing.
Wait a minute. Let me see if I can reach her and find out. I'm sorry, Gail.
Okay, let me see if I could do it some other way.
It's under screen sharing. You have to go into that icon and it allows you to open it up for other people as well. But the host has to do that.
That's right. I have to get the host on the phone.
Oh, she's the host. Okay, I wonder if I could minimize this and.
Hold on, let me see what I can do here. I wish I had known about this earlier.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Judy, we have a question about hosting. Gail would like to share her screen, but she has to be made a co-host. Can you do it?
Just enable screen sharing by a participant.
Well, I try. Andrea was on to record, but now I don't see her here.
Okay, wait a second. Hold on.
All right. We're working on it, Gail.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to continue.
Yeah, why don't you do that? And I'll try to work out the
I
technology
get
here.
it together fine. Otherwise, you'll miss all my beautiful photographs. But I can show them at the end or something.
No, we would like to see them, surely.
At any rate, the Greenport Summer Playhouse, we had fabulous shows.
All right, Judith is, excuse me, Gail, just let me stop you for a minute.
Sure.
Judith is on, and Judy, can you make Gail a co-host so she can screen?
Share screen.
Yes.
Yeah, if she goes into share screen, there's a place in which she clicks on to allow multiple people to share the screen.
They're conferring with each other. I can read their lips. Judy's telling Sarah. Whoops.
Judy, you're muted. Judith, you're muted.
I made the setting, and you can share multiple screens. So if you really wanted to start the share, that's possible.
Oh, I can share. Okay, let me see what happens. Yes, it works.
Oh, yes, you're okay now? Excellent. All right, thank you all for helping.
Of course, now I'm a little messed up here. So, okay, can you see me, hear me? Yes.
We can see your screen and I can see you.
Okay, see my screen, great. Okay, so I'm now going to show you the Greenport Summer Playhouse, which it's very so I know I took these pictures with my camera. We did only plays that we really wanted to see. So we did A View from the Bridge by Arthur Miller. We did 2 one-act plays by Edward Albee. We did The Bald Soprano by Ionesco. This is just one season. And The Waltz of the Toreadors. In our last season, we got desperate. We needed money, so we put on a musical, The Fantastics. So now We also had Jason Miller in our cast, who won an Academy Award for The Exorcist. We even had David Mamet in our company as an actor. He wasn't that good, David Mamet, but he was a great playwright. And we even did the play A Taste of Honey by Sheila Delaney with an all-black cast. So for those of you who have been out there as long as I have, you'll know that that was extremely controversial. And all of us lived together in a big house on Bayholme Road in Southold. And one artist who we employed threatened to sue us because every night we had spaghetti. And that wasn't in the contract. So we had a great time, but my husband and I maxed out our investors and our credit cards. So we had to close the Greenport Playhouse. What a great time to open one now there, of course. We also did a couple of children's shows, and actually that was the only lucrative thing that we did. We hired Leah Friedman, I think, who might have gone to the synagogue, and she directed a show, and from her I learned so much, and I started directing and writing adaptations, and when we closed the Greenport Playhouse, I started a children's theater in New York called the King's Players. And with my friend Cecil Alonso, who unfortunately soon after died of AIDS. Also on the production was my husband, who's always there with me, and my mother. So we had a great time doing the King's Plays. We went all over to libraries and community rooms, and we performed at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. We kept growing and getting better, and Town Hall. And my brothers keep reminding me of doing The Wizard of Oz because they were in it. So, and we then adapted, I adapted a play from Peter Pan. We called it The Adventures of Peter Pan. And Peter Pan was like Superman in our version. And we had a terrific composer, Richard Berg. And my mother and I wrote the lyrics. We played to thousands of screaming kids at the Brooklyn Academy. And then we brought it off-Broadway to the Mercer Street Theater, where we also had wonderful audiences. But then two things happened that could probably only happen to theater people is, first of all, the Mercer Street Theater burned down. I mean, we all came there one day and it was burned to the ground. So, and the other thing was that the J.M. Barrie estate did not like us using the play, Peter Pan, the name, and we had to close down. That was unfortunate. So I want to show you now The Adventures of Peter Pan, which we did. And also at this time, I wrote my own, the first time I wrote an original piece, which was Rainbow Junction. And it was about 4 puppets. Each one had a different emotion, kind of like the Wizard of Oz. And it was very successful, and it's still being done. And as Sarah told you, it won the National Children's Theatre Foundation Award. So that, of course, was very encouraging to me. It actually, my friend and wonderful composer, Curtis McConley, just wrote an opera for young audiences about on Rainbow Junction, and unfortunately it's very costly to do it, so we still haven't found a home for it yet. But after that, I decided to try writing a play for grown-ups. And about that time, my father died. And I used to love going to synagogue with him, just the two of us, and listen to him say the prayers, and he taught me how to say the Kaddish. But when he died, and I went to say Kaddish for him at the Union Temple in Brooklyn, near where we lived, I was told I couldn't enter because women were not allowed to say Kaddish, and because I was wearing pants. Granted, this black velvet pantsuit that my rich sister-in-law handed me down was beautiful, but that did not matter. I was so humiliated and angry and hurt, and actually kind of developed strong feelings against going to synagogue after that. But what can I do? I could write a play, and that was called Holy Places.
Excuse me just a minute, Gail. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I'm wondering if when you are not showing us pictures, you may turn off the share screen.
Okay.
Because now we're just looking at your green screen. And then when you want to share, to go back.
Okay. I'll
If
see
you
if
can
I
do
can
that.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm going into I will do that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so Holy Places, yes. It was about a play about a mother and daughter, and the daughter who's unable to accept the death of her father. And I didn't know anybody in the grown-up theater at that time. So I was wondering, what am I going to do with this? So my husband said, why don't you go for your master's degree and you'll meet people and network and so forth. I was fortunate to get into the prestigious Master of Fine Arts program at Brooklyn College, headed by Jack Gilber. And he read my play and gave it to Julia Miles of the Women's Project. She had just started the Women's Project. There were very few women playwrights at that time. Not that many now either. And Julia did put on a production at the American Place Theater. Here it is, Holy Places. It's a woman running. And here is Tressa Hugh. You probably have from this picture, but a lot of people know who she was. She was very popular on television. And another scene from a photograph was the protagonist who meets up with some sleazy guy. And that was my first play, and fortunate enough to be able to work with great people. And Julia Miles was always my mentor after that. She produced other of my work as well. Okay, you want to see, okay. I'm sorry. During this time, I will stop trying to share. Okay. During this time, I was still in school, and I was given a graduate fellowship, a teaching fellow, and my assignment was to teach in the Veterans Outreach Program. This was a remedial program to teach Vietnam veterans, who were mostly GED graduates, to get them, in order to matriculate in the mainstream, they had to take a special test. And this class prepared them for that test. So when I walked into my first class, I really had to take quite a few deep breaths, because my class was 12 Black and brown men. And I thought, okay, this is a challenge. And they were all, most of them had received their GED, that had very little education. And in fact, I used to threaten them all the time if they didn't keep up their work, that I would write a play about them. And of course, that's what I did. The play called On the Home Front is about a white woman teacher whose husband died in the war. And so she takes on a class of veterans as a memorial to him. And that play, I'll just show you some stuff. This was a production from Albany, a beautiful production at the Empire State Theater for the Performing Arts. That was the first production, and it was really beautiful. Patricia Snyder produced it, and she just did a wonderful job. Here are scenes, from it. This is the first scene where she walks into the class and there are no chairs. So that's quite a confrontation about who's going to bring them in. This is a scene between an African American conflicting with the Caribbean American student, because there were a lot of conflicts going on, sub conflicts. This is the teacher in her own world, remembering her husband. Let's see what else I have. This was a lovely reading for the One World Arts Foundation, who then gave me a very nice grant. And then it was also, Stan Sophis did a short film about it, and it won quite a few festival awards, and actually he then brought it to Italy. I think he wanted to go to Italy, so he presented it there. This was the film. It was called Fragments. So now, won many awards and has been widely produced, but I'm afraid now that that's going to stop because of the issue about cultural appropriation, which many of you I'm sure have heard about. Producers are afraid to produce a play with 7 Black men written by a white woman. So hopefully, somebody will come along again and see differently. At one of the rehearsals of Homefront, I think it was the One World Arts grant we were doing, my agent at the time, Marion Searchinger, brought down Lorraine Gordon, who was the wife of Max Gordon of the Village Vanguard. And Lorraine loved On the Homefront, and she commissioned me to write a play about Jabbo Smith, a jazz musician who grew up in an orphanage in South Carolina, and all the children were taught music. I'm sorry, I know I should stop sharing. That was very, so I spent a year doing research, going to South Carolina, seeing the orphanage, and then Julia, along with my husband and other investors, raised money to produce it in New Orleans. And we, Luther Henderson wrote the incidental music, and Vernell Bonaris directed it. And did I do something? No. And Am I still here? Or, yeah,
Yes, no, you're here, Gail.
okay.
Everybody's here. We're not sharing your screen right now.
Okay, oh, okay. That's cool with everybody, I guess.
Yes,
Um,
we're good.
Okay, so now, yeah, we did a big production down in New Orleans at Le Petit Théâtre de Vaucalais. And I spent 4 months down there eating and gaining 15 pounds and had a great time. And the production was huge. Vernell, who was a native in New Orleans, brought all these local kids into it. And it was, and we brought Harold Sylvester from Hollywood. He was, you know, a star on television. And it was big. It was big and it was fun. And the highlight was when my family came down to see it, and we all ate Thanksgiving dinner at the Commander's Palace, which, if you know New Orleans, is special. So after the show was over, we all met in New York and decided it was crying out to be a musical, and I was to come up with the book and lyrics, and then we'd go forth again. Well, I slowed down here. I had 2 daughters, and I was also adjunct teaching English and playwriting in the CUNY system, and I wasn't really ready to do a rewrite. But at this time, I was fortunate to be asked to join 6 award-winning playwrights, including Anna Devere Smith and Carol Mack, to collaborate with them on a production that was sponsored by Vital Voices, which is an organization that supports women all over the world in business and politics. So each of us, you know, I'm looking for my shit, there it is. Each of us chose a woman that Vital Voices suggested, and we spent time researching the history of that particular country, and with a lot of intensive interviews with the women. And that was very exciting. And to this day, 7, we wove all these separate pieces together, and we called it 7. So these are the women of 7, so incredible women. Hafsat from Nigeria, Muktamai from Pakistan, you heard about her, Muktaran, who was raped by tribes people and then received money from the government, and she opened up all these schools for young girls. And Marina from Russia, who said, when I started my work and would speak to the police, they would say, because she started a hotline for women, the first hotline in Russia. She would say, come on, women don't feel loved if they're not beaten. And then Farida from Afghanistan. The woman I wrote about was Annabella de Leon, an unbelievable woman who pulled herself out of poverty to become a brilliant politician fighting corruption. And Musakua from Cambodia. They're all these incredible women. And it just very exciting time, a time where I was transported to whole other worlds. And I'm going to show you a little more about 7, because as Sarah said, it's been translated into 30 languages, done all over the world in women's studies and universities. And this little picture, you see, was done in Afghanistan secretly. They hid it away, and it was invited only. And here, let's see, here is a wonderful production that Tina Brown put on for her yearly women's celebration. And you could see Hillary Clinton introduced it, and Meryl Streep was among the actors in it. In the middle is Inez, the Irish woman who was in the play. That was an enthralling evening. And then, as I said, it went all over the world. And when I was in Croatia with my husband, who was teaching there, I was sitting on the train, and this is what I saw a man reading across the way from me. That's one of the journalists had interviewed me, and I thought, well, I got that over with. And then I was on the front page of this art section. So that was, of course, that was fun. And I think this is the North Fork, where I worked with the North Fork Reform Synagogue, and the 7, I can't get this picture down, I'm sorry. Wait, let me try again. At any rate, this was done for Sister Margaret. I don't know if you people know that unbelievably incredible woman. And we did it for the benefit of her church, and it's in the Catholic Church. And Sister Margaret made a very moving speech afterwards. She's so amazing, Sister Margaret. So, okay, then that's 7. Still going on, still published also published all over the world. And yeah, so after that, I was ready to go back to the jazz orphanage. But my time off from the rewrite brought me to some new ideas. One was that the main character had to be a young woman, not a boy, or a girl, not a boy. And the minister had to be white, because I knew I could no longer get away with being a white writer with an all black cast. So I'm sorry, I'm back. So I wrote a first draft of this, which was done at La Mama. It was just a reading. I think they did a reading. And I called it Words and Music by Sweetee Jones, but it was told from the story of Sweetee Jones being an old woman remembering. But I didn't think that worked. And I kept looking. This was the picture on my wall while I was writing it. I kept seeing this picture, and that's who I wanted to portray. And then I'm going to read to you what it was about, because when I start saying what it's about, it gets all mixed up in all the subplots. So Sweetee is about an outcast minister who leads a young street singer and a ragtag band of orphans as they struggle to make music and find their place in the world amid the bigotry and poverty of the 1930s South. So that's a little something of what it's about. It's about a lot more than that, but that's good enough. And the production was wonderful. Patricia Birch, a legendary person in the theater who's got 5 Tony, 5 Emmys, 5 everything. I was very fortunate to have worked with her. She directed the show. This is a picture of the cast. So there was, quite diverse. And a couple of scenes. This is at the Signature Theater when all the orphans are on the road singing their hearts out. And this is the protagonist, Sweetee, and Cat Jones, who they meet along the road. And this actor is Jelani Aladdin, who went on to be the star of what? Oh my God, Frozen. He was the star of Frozen on Broadway. And Jordan was given an Audelco Award for this production. So that was, that of course was fun. This is Cat in a, when Sweetee leaves him to go with the Reverend. So just some pictures. I have some music, maybe later we can, if there's time, I can play a couple of measures. And while the play was running, I wrote a new play, which is not something I usually do. This play took me 2 weeks to write. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and finish at 10, and then I'd be out for the rest of the day. And 2 weeks, it usually took me 2 years to write something, because this play was in my head for years. It's a play called Cracked Open, and it's a play about a family who has to deal with the quagmire and absurdities of the mental health system because one of their children has a breakdown. That was done, pretty close to when the pandemic began. The League of Professional Theater Women did a reading at the Grand Central Library, and I was so lucky because I have a good friend who's a casting director, and he got together the most wonderful cast. So I was really able to learn a lot about the play and what worked and what didn't work. And so at that point, okay, I'm still working on Cracked Open, and I'm also right now the artistic director for the East Broadway Theater Project. I get to put on my producer hat, and this is bringing live professional readings of new plays to the very diverse neighborhood of the Lower East Side. For the neighborhood, for the people who can't afford to go to the theater or who don't go. And it's been very good. They gave me a little room, stuffy room, and we had 6 people in the audience. And the last reading we had was, I was graduated to the beautiful penthouse at the Manny Cantor Center, and we had 75 people. So that's been going on, and it's a great joy to be able to bring that to the neighborhood. So just as at the beginning of the pandemic, I was asked to turn On the Home Front into a screenplay. And I also plan to work on polishing Cracked Open and Sweetee, and a children's book illustrator contacted me about turning Rainbow Junction into a children's book. And I started thinking about this new work. One of my husband's cases about a very controversial adoption. But I did nothing. This pandemic really flattened me. So that's why I'm so grateful that you invited me to do this, because it has spurred my inertia to just start thinking again about going back to my work. So thank you for listening, and thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps there are questions here. We have some time for Q&A. Let's see, who's asking? Bob Kriegel is asking. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Gailey. I often wondered about you hear people say they write plays or stories based on their own experience. And some of these are obviously from your experience, but others are not. And I wonder how like in Sweetee, how you really get into the characters that are so different than your own life.
Yeah,
And the other thing I wanted to say is how impressed I am with my little sister.
okay. Happy to hear that too. I think I had a lot of rewrites with Sweetee, as opposed to works that I write directly from my experience. A lot of research, a lot of talking to people, and yeah, it was much more difficult for me to get inside a character that I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that photograph that I showed you was so important to me. I kept looking at her and seeing her, and so yeah, it's an interesting. Not all playwrights write, directly from their experience, but that old saying, you write best about what you know, of course. But I don't know if that's true, because writing up Annabella from Seven was just fascinating, and understanding her was, a great experience for me. So yeah, both those things.
Great. Does anyone else have a question would like to pose to Gail? Adrian.
Gail, I am so impressed by your experience, your knowledge and your capability. And we remember about synagogue. Oh my God.
Oh my! Thank you so much.
It's wonderful. Would you mind if I contact you I'm president of the Sisterhood, and I would love to discuss with you something you might be able to do for our inaugural Sisterhood meeting in the spring. So we haven't had a meeting for a few months, and I said, nothing has really grabbed me as to what to have a meeting for, and you grabbed me. I mean, you are fabulous. Oh, so I'm going to be contacting you.
Contact me and I'll come up with something.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Susie has a question.
Yes, and I don't know if it's answerable here. Just delving a little deeper into some of the problems you mentioned with the seven, as far as cultural appropriation or expropriation is concerned, the fact that the whole play revolves around a light-colored woman who is.
And then you have to unmute.
I'm sorry. Am I coming through?
Yes, we can hear you, Susie. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wondered, I mean, it's such an incredibly fascinating scene. And some of us those of us who teach often have these bizarre assortments of people in front of us, and yet we're expected to bring it all together and make it all work. I thought, what an inspiring story, really, for, a light-colored woman to confront people who do not look like her and make something work. I think it's a phenomenal story. So I was just curious about how a problem with cultural expropriation or appropriation could be negotiated in that situation. I'm hoping you do it.
Well, no, I have that issue with On the Home Front, and the issue with the issue with Sweetee is, musicals are different. I think, there's a different mindset of producers on, you know, musicals that might have a commercial life, you know. It's like whoever could write them, and if it goes well, you know, let's do it. But on the home front, and of course the cast of Sweetee was very diverse too, and cultural. Yeah, I feel very upset, to say the least, about this whole issue of cultural appropriation. And I don't know, I feel very close to being a New Yorker. You know, I feel close to all communities and don't feel that I'm stealing, you know. When I did on the home front, I asked the students to write their own stories. And so a lot of the material came from them. It wasn't like I was making up a lot. Of course, I made up a lot of the stuff, but it's a very difficult issue now for writers, for white writers, and always for women writers. So if you can do anything about it, if you could write your senator or something, please do so. But people have very strong feelings about that now, and I don't feel angry about it because I know, you know, how it feels to be left out of things as a woman playwright, and so I you know, don't. I can't get too angry about it. You know, it's their opportunity now for Black writers and producers to get their work done.
Liz Adams has a question.
It's not a question. I actually had the good fortune to see Seven at the North Fork, the North Fork Reform Synagogue put on. I saw an ad for it and went, and it was absolutely fascinating. Congratulations on a really wonderful production.
Oh, that was, I mean, it's a great piece. It's a fabulous piece showing off those women. But the 7 women from the synagogue, they worked so hard. And, you know, they didn't let me off the hook once. And we had a wonderful time putting it together. Thank you for saying that.
Actually, I'm wondering if I can just ask a question myself. I'm wondering if you were planning on bringing anything to the North Fork, maybe over the summer or something.
Well, you know, we brought the whole theater to the Greenport Summer Playhouse,
Right.
which, I mean, every now and then I say to my husband, but can't we open up that theater again? Because now is that, you know, all those sophisticated people who live here now. But yeah, I've thought about it, but you know what? It's a lot of work and a lot of money now. You know, the union, now that, you know, I'm deeply in the theater community, I don't know how we got away with what we did at the Greenport Summer Playhouse, but you know, everything costs so much money, you know, transporting actors and all the union restrictions. So yeah, I think about it all the time. I would love to have a theater out there. So
We'd love for you to have one also.
yeah, you really need one now.
Yeah. Was there someone else who had a question? Yes, Barry.
Yes. On this issue of appropriation, I just want to remind people that George Gershwin, who was Jewish, wrote Porgy and Bess, you know, one of the greatest, you know, pieces of music of all time. So we should always keep that in mind. Getting back to Greenport, for those of you who remember, who go back that far, back to the 60s, Arthur Levine was the mayor at that time. And I believe he may have been a member of the synagogue. And he gave us the keys to the city.
Right.
So we still have those keys. If we want to open up something, we can use our keys to the city.
What does it open up? I wonder.
But that was really nice. Yes. Okay.
I wanted to also, I'm Erica, Gail's daughter, but I think I wanted to say two things. One, being a woman playwright in the 60s, raising kids, was very unique. The only women playwrights at that time that were making it really didn't have families. And so that was a huge achievement. And I think still that issue still continues, that women in general are still being, whether you're Black or white or brown, are still being left out. And so I give a huge amount of props and credit to my mother for, managing all that. And that was no small feat. And, couldn't be in a room all the time alone writing, although she was, but not all the time. But I also think, Mom, in some ways you were really ahead of your time, because what you wrote about and the community involvement or the stories that you heard, I think what's going to come out of the pandemic is that more theaters and places are going to want to use community members as an invitation, to come in and to welcome people to what is the elite theater. So I think the work that you've done in the libraries or using non-professionals and things like that, and the topics, I'm hoping there's sort of a renaissance of that, and more people get to do theater and come to theater. So those are my comments and my hopes.
Yes.
Thank you for
you
that.
very much. And Erica is the head of the arts program for the Aspen Institute. So, and she's worked for the theaters, and I'm very proud of her too.
Great. We're delighted to have both of you here today. All of your family. You have so many family members here today, Gail.
I know, isn't that nice? I haven't seen them in so long. It's like longing to see them. It's so nice. Yeah.
Liz, you had another question?
Yeah, the Methodist Church in Southold that was turned into an opera house a couple of years ago has recently been up for sale. I don't know if it's sold, but it's a wonderful theater because it's set up.
No.
Yes.
Believe me, I know about that. And hello, Barry, did you hear that? We could open.
I think we may launch something here today. I think that's great.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Very
but we
exciting.
would need to raise a considerable amount of money. So, that's every time that always, besides cultural appropriation, it's money is the big problem. So, yeah, I hear about that, Liz, that opera house, and yeah, long for it.
I hope it works out.
Yeah.
Barry, I hope you're listening.
He's listening, but his pockets are closed up.
Well, maybe he can find a way.
Yeah, okay.
I think we have time maybe for one more question, if there's someone who has something to add here. You had said, Gail, earlier that maybe we could hear a little of the music. You had mentioned some, I wasn't sure how you were going to do that, but I thought might be a nice closing to close on some of your music.
Great. Let me, let's see, where is that music? Okay. I can play this song called, I have a couple of songs. I'll play little pieces from it.
Okay.
This first song is called Sing for Tomorrow, and it's a song that an older kind of father figure to Sweetee sings to her when, after the minister abuses her, which of course I forgot to tell you about, so but don't want to go in that. So this is an excerpt, and this wonderful.
There's a young girl who has gone, lost her way. All she know be to beg and to borrow. She She got no home and got no place to stay. So I say, young girl, sing for tomorrow. I've had a hard way to go. I've had many a tear. But when I rise up tomorrow, a new day will be here. Tomorrow, a new day will be here. Come on, sweetie. When you get back on your feet again, you can go north to New York. There's plenty of work for girls who sing as good as you.
That's one more.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Okay.
I want to thank all of you for coming today. This has been an honor and a pleasure to have you here today, Gail, and to meet your family.
Okay, my honor too.
I wish you well with your new play, and I hope that you will come back to Lunch and Learn soon.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, and thank you for doing this, Sarah, and keeping up the incredible schedule of Lunch and Learn.
You know, yes, the Mondays do roll around every week. They have a way of doing that.
It's a production, yes, I can understand.
But when a program like this occurs, it makes it all worthwhile. So thank you again.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.